My beloved child, stop for just a moment and listen carefully, because the words you are about to hear are not meant to pass through your mind and disappear like every other message you have heard today. There is a reason this message found you at this exact moment, and there is a question waiting at the center of everything I am about to reveal. Someone has been carrying this question inside their heart for longer than you realize, and every time they imagined asking you, their courage disappeared. They have rehearsed the words in their mind. They have imagined your reaction. They have wondered whether you would smile, become silent, turn away, or finally understand what they have been trying to hide behind ordinary conversations. And now something has changed. The hesitation that kept them silent is beginning to break. They are nervous because this is not a casual question. It is not something they can ask and then pretend they never asked. It is connected to a decision, a confession, and a future they have secretly imagined more times than they would ever admit. So don't skip this moment. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and the most important part is not the question itself. It is what comes immediately after the question. You may think you already know what they want to ask, but there is a deeper layer you have not seen. They have been watching your reactions, remembering your smallest words, and collecting little signs that made them believe there might still be a chance. There was a moment when they almost told you everything, but fear interrupted them. There was another moment when they typed something, stared at it for several minutes, and then erased it. There was a night when they wanted to reach out more than anything, but they convinced themselves that silence was safer. Yet silence did not make the feeling disappear. It made it louder. And tonight, the question has become impossible for them to keep buried. They keep asking themselves, what if I finally tell the truth? Then another thought follows, what if I never tell the truth and lose my chance forever? That is why they are nervous. They are standing emotionally at the edge of a decision, and you are the person connected to it. But listen closely, because there is something surprising here. They are not nervous because they do not know what they want. They are nervous because they know exactly what they want, and they are terrified that your answer might change everything. Imagine someone sitting alone, looking at their phone, opening your conversation, closing it, opening it again, typing 3 words, deleting them, typing a sentence, deleting that too. They want to ask you something simple, yet the meaning behind it is enormous. They want to know whether you still believe in the possibility of us. They want to know whether there is still a door open between you. They want to know whether the distance, confusion, silence, misunderstandings, and time have truly erased what once existed, or whether something powerful survived underneath it all. And that is why I need you to stay. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because the question they are preparing to ask may sound small when you first hear it, but the answer could become one of those moments you remember for years. There is a reason their heart is racing before they even speak. There is a reason they have imagined your face while asking it. And there is a reason they have waited until now. They have realized something that they were not ready to admit before: losing you would hurt far more than risking rejection. That realization changed them. It forced them to look at their choices, their silence, their pride, and all the opportunities they allowed to pass. They now understand that sometimes the greatest regret is not hearing no. Sometimes the greatest regret is never asking at all. And they are getting dangerously close to choosing courage over fear, not because they are suddenly fearless, but because the thought of never knowing your answer has become heavier than the fear of hearing it. There is something you need to understand about the nervousness behind this question. It comes from vulnerability, not weakness. This person has built a protective wall around their emotions, and for a long time they believed they could control everything by staying quiet. They thought if they did not reveal too much, they could not be disappointed. If they acted calm, they would never have to admit how deeply they cared. If they pretended that your absence did not affect them, they could convince themselves that they had moved forward. But the heart does not always obey the rules the mind creates. Every ordinary day somehow reminded them of you. A song, a place, a familiar phrase, a quiet evening, even a random memory could bring everything back. They began realizing that what they had called moving on was sometimes simply learning how to live while carrying an unfinished story. And unfinished stories have a strange way of returning when you least expect them. This is where the shocking part begins. They recently recognized that they have been waiting for a sign from you while you may have been waiting for a sign from them. Two people can care deeply and still remain silent because each person is afraid of making the first move. One thinks, if they wanted me, they would come closer. The other thinks exactly the same thing. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. And the silence starts looking like an answer even when it is not. That is why this question matters. It is an attempt to break that silence. It is their way of saying, without saying everything at once, can we stop pretending that this means nothing? Don't skip this part, because the next realization is something they have been struggling with privately. They have begun comparing every new possibility to the connection they had with you, and nothing feels quite the same. They may have met other people. They may have tried to distract themselves. They may have told themselves that someone else could bring peace into their life. But whenever they imagined something truly meaningful, your presence somehow appeared in the background of that picture. That frightened them. Because it meant the feeling was not simply nostalgia. It was not merely a memory they could lock away. It was still alive. They began asking themselves questions they had avoided for too long. Why do I still care? Why do I still wonder what they are doing? Why do I still imagine telling them things first? Why does their opinion still matter to me? And eventually they reached the question that changed everything. What if I am wasting time because I am too afraid to ask? That is the question behind the question you are waiting to hear. And when they finally ask you, you may realize that they are not merely seeking information. They are seeking permission to hope. They want to know whether their heart is foolish for still believing. They want to know whether they should finally take one step toward you or close this chapter with dignity. But there is another secret. They do not actually want to close it. That is why they are nervous. They are afraid that one honest conversation could either bring incredible relief or force them to confront a truth they have been avoiding. Yet they are willing to face that truth now. Something has shifted inside them. The person who once thought silence gave them control has discovered that silence has been controlling them instead. Their thoughts have become louder. Their regrets have become clearer. Their desire to speak has become stronger. And that is why this moment feels different. They are not preparing to send an ordinary message. They are preparing to reveal a part of themselves they normally protect. So stay till the end. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you, because the question is coming closer, and when it arrives, you will understand why every hesitation mattered. Picture the moment they finally decide that today is the day. Their hand pauses before they reach for their phone. They take a breath. They look at your name. Suddenly every memory comes rushing back at once, the laughter, the conversations, the misunderstandings, the moments when they felt understood without needing to explain themselves, and even the moments when distance made everything painfully complicated. They wonder whether you remember those moments too. They wonder if you ever look back and ask the same questions. They wonder if you ever wished they had stayed a little longer, spoken a little more honestly, or fought a little harder for the connection. Then they begin typing. Can I ask you something? They stare at those words. Delete. Type again. I need to ask you something important. Delete. They realize that none of these sentences are strong enough to carry what they truly feel. Because what they really want to ask is much more personal. They want to ask whether you would choose them if given another opportunity. They want to ask whether you would be willing to start again without carrying every old misunderstanding into the future. They want to ask whether you can forgive what happened before and see what could happen next. They want to ask whether you still have room for them in your life. But they are afraid of saying all of that at once. So they search for a smaller question, one that can open the door without forcing the entire story into the first sentence. And eventually they arrive at the words, I want to ask you a very important question. I am so nervous. Will you? Then they stop. That pause is everything. Because the unfinished sentence contains the entire emotional battle they have been fighting. Will you listen? Will you trust me? Will you give me another chance? Will you meet me halfway? Will you let me explain? Will you stay? Will you choose us? Will you believe me this time? They do not know which version of the question they will finally ask, because they are still fighting their own fear. But one thing is becoming clear: they cannot continue living with the unanswered question. And perhaps that is why you are hearing this message now. Not because every detail of your future has already been written, but because moments of emotional truth often arrive when people finally become tired of hiding. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is a reason the question feels bigger than a simple invitation. They are not merely asking you to say yes to a moment. They are asking whether you are willing to believe in a possibility. They know they cannot erase the past. They know there were moments when they disappointed you, confused you, or made you wonder whether you mattered. They know that words alone cannot repair everything. That is why their nervousness is so intense. They understand that you may not trust them immediately. They understand that you may need time. And surprisingly, they are beginning to respect that. Before, they wanted immediate answers because uncertainty frightened them. Now they are realizing that real connection requires patience. They are preparing themselves to hear whatever you truly feel. That is a major change. And perhaps the most beautiful part is that they are no longer trying to control your answer. They simply want the chance to ask the question honestly. They want to stand before you emotionally without pretending to be stronger than they are. They want to say, "This is what I feel. This is what I regret. This is what I hope. And now I need to know what you feel." Imagine how difficult that would be for someone who has spent so long hiding behind pride. That is why this moment matters. Their nervousness is proof that the answer means something. If it meant nothing, they would not be afraid. If you meant nothing, they would not rehearse the conversation. If the future did not matter, they would not be standing at this emotional crossroads. Something huge is waiting for you, but you must stay long enough to understand what that something truly is. Then comes the memory they cannot escape, the one moment that keeps returning whenever they consider giving up. It may have been something you said without realizing its impact. Maybe you once told them that you valued honesty. Maybe you told them that people should not walk away simply because they are afraid. Maybe you looked at them in a way that made them feel seen when they desperately needed it. Whatever the moment was, they remembered it. And now it has become the reason they are reconsidering everything. They have started to understand that the connection was not perfect, but perfection was never the point. The point was that something real happened between two people who were not always ready to handle it. Timing may have been wrong. Communication may have failed. Fear may have taken over. Pride may have spoken louder than love. But the feeling survived. That realization has shaken them. They expected time to make everything disappear, yet time only showed them what truly mattered. The distractions faded. The noise became quieter. And when everything became still, your memory remained. Don't skip now, because this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. They have been asking someone else for advice. Not necessarily about your name directly, but about whether they should take a risk and finally speak honestly. They were told something that stayed with them: if you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you may wait forever. That sentence struck them deeply. They realized there may never be a perfect day, perfect conversation, or perfect guarantee. There is only the courage to be honest while uncertainty still exists. So now they are considering doing something they once promised themselves they would never do. They are considering making the first move. Not with a dramatic performance. Not with pressure. Not with an attempt to force your emotions. Just with truth. And that is why the words "will you" have so much weight. Because whatever comes after them could change the direction of the story. Will you meet me? Will you hear me? Will you let me explain? Will you start again? Will you give this a chance? They have imagined every possible answer. They have imagined you saying yes. They have imagined you saying no. They have imagined silence. They have imagined tears. They have imagined laughter from nervousness. They have imagined you asking them why they waited so long. And there is one answer they are secretly hoping for, not a perfect answer, but an honest one. They want to know where they truly stand in your heart. They are tired of guessing. They are tired of interpreting silence. They are tired of pretending that they do not care. Their nervousness is the emotional cost of finally choosing honesty. And if they ask you this question, understand that the question may have taken months or even years to reach the surface. What sounds like one sentence may have been built from hundreds of silent thoughts. What appears sudden may have been developing quietly for a very long time. So stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Don't skip, because the deepest revelation is not that they want to ask you something. The deepest revelation is that they are finally willing to accept whatever truth your answer contains. There is another layer that you may not expect. They have been afraid that you no longer see them the way you once did. They wonder if you have changed. They wonder if you have become stronger, happier, more independent, and completely ready to move forward without them. That possibility scares them because they know they cannot demand a place in your life simply because they finally found the courage to return. They know they have to earn trust. They know they have to show consistency. They know that a beautiful speech means very little if their actions do not match it. This is why their question is not just about what they want. It is about whether you are willing to let them prove themselves. They want to ask, will you let me show you that I am not the same person who made those mistakes? And perhaps that is the sentence they have been trying to find. They do not want to make impossible promises. They want to demonstrate change through small, steady choices. They want to communicate instead of disappearing. They want to listen instead of assuming. They want to stop allowing fear to make decisions for them. They have finally understood that love cannot survive on unspoken feelings alone. It requires courage, patience, respect, and truth. And this realization came at a cost. They had to experience distance to understand closeness. They had to experience silence to appreciate conversation. They had to feel your absence to understand the space you occupied in their life. That is why their nervousness is so deep. They know they are standing before an opportunity that may not return in the same form again. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and the next part of this emotional journey is where they stop asking themselves whether they should speak and begin deciding exactly what they will say. They may begin with something simple because simple words feel safer. Can I tell you something? Then they may pause. I have been thinking about this for a long time. Another pause. I don't know how you are going to react. And finally, the sentence they have been carrying inside, I want to ask you a very important question. At that moment, their heart will be racing because there is no hiding behind ordinary conversation anymore. You will know something serious is coming. They will know it too. And perhaps you will wonder why they are so nervous about a question. The answer is simple, because they are not asking for information. They are asking for a possibility. They are asking whether the future they secretly imagined has any chance of becoming real. They are asking whether the story is truly finished or whether there is another chapter waiting. They are asking whether the distance between you is permanent or whether it can finally be crossed. And there is something beautiful about that vulnerability. A person who once wanted to appear completely certain is now admitting that they are afraid. They are admitting that your answer matters. They are admitting that they cannot pretend anymore. And that admission may be the most honest thing they have ever given you. Now listen carefully, because this is the point where the question becomes much more powerful than you expected. The person behind this nervous moment has already imagined a future conversation with you. They have imagined sitting somewhere peaceful, without distractions, without other people interfering, without old misunderstandings controlling the conversation. They want to talk about what happened. They want to explain what they could not explain before. They want to tell you what they were afraid of. They want to hear what you were afraid of. They want to discover whether both of you were protecting yourselves at the same time, accidentally creating the distance neither of you truly wanted. And then, after all the explanations, they want to ask the question that has been hiding behind everything else: will you give us a chance? Notice the difference. They are not simply asking, will you come back? They are asking whether you will build something new instead of repeating the old story. That distinction matters. They know going backward would not solve anything. They want to move forward with greater understanding. They want to create a connection that does not depend on guessing. They want to speak openly instead of expecting you to read between the lines. They want to stop allowing pride to become